Tonight, a successful liftoff for the biggest and most powerful rocket ever built. And then things got interesting.
I mean, it was exciting.
Why the disintegration of their work had officials and workers cheering. Police lay out the details of a bold airport heist.
The total worth is estimated at just over $20 million.
How a new track from Drake and the Weeknd could disappoint. The apparent duet that's shaking the music world.
This is The National with David Common.
Space enthusiasts have now marked a moment, the launch of the most powerful rocket in human history, towering 28 stories tall. Versions of it are expected to shepherd astronauts on the most ambitious space missions ever, to the moon, even to Mars. The SpaceX starship blasted off with fanfare, hurtled into the sky like a Titanic javelin, and then, as you see, blew up. And yet reaction on the ground was not what you'd expect. Nicole Mortellero shows us why it's being chalked up as a qualified success.
And with that, SpaceX's massive starship took to the sky. The cheers of the SpaceX employees at Mission Control, mixing with the roar of the rocket's engines, was almost deafening. But around 2.5 minutes into the flight, the rocket veered off course and began to tumble. After several flips and turns, it blew up, or as SpaceX likes to say, it experienced a rapid, unscheduled disassembly. And yet, the cheers were louder than ever. That's because this isn't considered a failure for SpaceX CEO Elon Musk.
I mean, it was exciting. This was not unexpected. In the history of spaceflight, launch failures in the development process happen all the time. They set expectations as such. They even have that euphemism of the rapid unscheduled disassembly to kind of cover the using the term failure. But failure is productive. Failure is when you learn. And today they got a lot of data about the vehicle in flight.
They did have a few surprises from which they can learn, such as apparent debris coming off the launch pad, even damaging a nearby car. Engineers are likely poring over critical data for the next launch attempt, which Musk said could happen in a few months. The ground crew scouring the launch pad for damage.
So I imagine that is a phenomenal amount of information that they couldn't really model properly with their computer software. So that happened. And then, of course, the debris that happened from the launch pad, I think they're going to need to do a lot of work.
But SpaceX will push ahead. Eventually, a version of this starship will be used to take astronauts back to the moon as part of NASA's Artemis program.
And that mission's coming up pretty quickly.
Yeah, because you know what? They need to do this very soon. We have Artemis 2 that's going back around the moon with Canadian Jeremy Hansen. And then after that is Artemis 3. But NASA doesn't have a lunar lander. They are actually depending on SpaceX. And SpaceX, it'll be a version, it's called the Human Landing System, will be a version of this Starship. And that mission is supposed to go in 2025. So the question is, will SpaceX make that deadline? Don't know.
Well, we'll find out. Nicole Mortellero, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Canada's biggest airport was the scene of a multi-million-dollar heist of gold and other valuables. Now investigators are working to find out how it happened and who's responsible. Dale Manukduk joins us from police headquarters at Toronto's Pearson Airport. Dale, exactly what went down here?
And David, what we know right now is that on Monday, an aircraft arrived at Pearson Airport in the early evening. And as per normal procedure, it was unloaded and cargo was transferred to a holding facility. Now, that cargo, which police are describing as a high valuable container, was offloaded. It was later removed illegally from that holding facility. And it's since been reported and an investigation has commenced. Now, police say that the shipment did contain gold, but was not exclusive to gold. It did also contain some other monetary valuables as well. Right now, the estimated value just over $20 million. We don't know if this was a crime of opportunity or if it was planned. Here's a little bit of what police had to say.
Well, we'll look at all avenues, but I mean, for me to come on the record and say it's professional this time would be really, really early for me, and I'd be hesitant to say such thing. But we'll look at it all, right? But how this went missing certainly it piques our interest, and we'll try and dig into it. But for sure, right? But to say it's professional this time, a little early for me to say.
So not a lot of details there, David. We still don't know anything yet about suspects or how the cargo was removed from the holding facility or who even owns the cargo.
What are police saying more about the investigation?
So Peel Police's Criminal Investigation Bureau Airport Division is in charge right now, and they have the RCMP ready to assist. They do say that this is an isolated incident and very rare. They're not ruling out a potential inside job and are willing to expand the investigation team as needed. We did speak to a former RCMP major crimes investigator about where this investigation might go. Have a listen.
A basic investigation involves a triangle. If you're looking at one point of the triangle is a location, another is the property, the stolen property, and another is people. What they want to do is investigate, get as much verbal evidence, physical evidence, camera evidence, documentary evidence as possible to start making links to those points on the triangle.
So last thing, David, police say that there is no threat to public safety. Anybody flying in or out of Pearson shouldn't be concerned. This is a pretty wild, sensational story, David.
It certainly is. Dale Manuktuk at Pearson Airport, thank you. Ottawa has announced a massive new deal with auto giant Volkswagen to build electric vehicle batteries here in Canada. Now, it comes with thousands of jobs, but also means taxpayers giving up $13 billion. Here's Anis Hadari on what Canada gets for that money.
Ottawa calls it a great deal for Canada.
And it means ensuring that Canada, which is a major car-producing country today, continues to be a car-producing country as we move to electric vehicles.
Volkswagen will get up to $13 billion over the next decade to make electric vehicle batteries in St. Thomas, Ontario.
For too long, Canada has been losing out deals to the U.S.
Industry experts say the deal is necessary.
It takes a lot of money, but it is an auction. So if the United States pays $1 billion, then someone else is going to have to pay $2 billion or $1.5 billion or anything more to lure in that facility.
Sources tell CBC News the subsidies are contingent on U.S. policy. If the U.S. drops its incentives, so does Canada. Canada's Industry Association says there will be huge spillover effects.
These are good jobs that pay for mortgages and feed kids and build communities. They're not short-term jobs that people slip in and out of. You can build a career on them.
One of the lessons we learn as kids is just because your friend does something silly doesn't mean you should do something silly.
Competing with the U.S. isn't worth the money, say taxpayer advocates.
Respectfully, if the United States wants to dole out corporate welfare to multinational corporations, we should say, fill your boots. But we should not engage in a battle of who can waste more taxpayers' money.
The new plant will be Volkswagen's first battery plant in North America, something the industry says can't come cheaply.
Not to be flippant about it, but this is the second biggest automaker in the world, and you want them to make your batteries here. It's not going to come for free.
Federal ministers are calling this plant a generational opportunity, but it's one that will cost billions of dollars over a generation. Anis Hadari, CBC News, Calgary.
The federal government has given the green light to a dramatic expansion of Vancouver's port. It's called Roberts Bank Terminal 2.
It will increase the Port of Vancouver's container handling capacity by up to 60%.
It's expected to spur trade for years to come, but has also prompted a number of environmental concerns, including threats to whale and bird populations. The government says the project has to abide by hundreds of legally binding conditions to mitigate those impacts. A new report from Canada's environmental watchdog says the government isn't measuring the effectiveness of its policies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. David Thurton explains why one part of the current plan may also have a fundamental flaw.
This is fascinating, isn't it? A lovely rubrum maple.
Mark Cullen is helping the government plant 2 billion trees by 2030, but even he has his doubts about that target.
Will they? I don't know. Will they stick with 2 billion trees? If they do, they probably will have to change their horizon.
Canada's environment watchdog says that plan has had some growing pains.
The first year they made it, just about. close enough. Second year, not even close.
In 2022, 60 million trees were supposed to go into the ground, but it's estimated only 16 million actually made it, a far cry from expectations.
Is 2 billion trees ambitious? For sure it is. Am I comfortable and confident that we can do it? I absolutely am.
But even if the government ends up achieving its goal, the benefits of their natural carbon sinks will take even longer to be felt. This graph shows site preparation and planting generate emissions at first. Bending that curve, though, won't happen until much later on.
The core benefits of the program aren't going to be realized until after 2050. That's when the trees will be old enough that they'll start to sequester a reasonable amount of carbon.
Nature Canada says Thursday's report exposes the flaws in emissions calculations.
They are overestimating the amount of emissions that are going to be sequestered.
The government acknowledges this, but says there's still benefits for the planet.
We're not banking on the tree planting program to reduce emissions. We know it will.
The government says it accepts the commissioner's recommendations, including monitoring the health of trees already in the ground and ramping up the growing process. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
From passports to the tax office, some critical services have ground to a halt on day 2 of a nationwide strike by Public Service Alliance of Canada workers. But Ottawa remains optimistic a deal is not far off.
We have tabled a fair offer. The way to a resolution is at the negotiating table, and remain hopeful and optimistic we're going to get to a resolution soon.
More than 100,000 unionized federal public servants walked off the job yesterday. They've been demanding a 13.5% pay raise over 3 years. Ottawa has countered with 9%. This strike is already having impacts across the country, from the city to the farm. Sarah Levitt shows some points of anxiety.
At the Maraîcher farm, it's all hands on deck. Time to get these seedlings planted in the fields. Onions, cabbages, and more.
We are harvesting at the end of June.
Okay. And so that's what's at risk here, the harvesting.
Yeah.
At risk because those workers are temporary foreign workers from Mexico, and the PSAC employees who process their work visas are on strike.
We don't know anything right now. We're asking for the delay of the government, and the government didn't say anything. It's the problem that we have.
The PSAC strike is expected to have a severe impact on an immigration system that was far behind already.
We went from around a 2.6 million file backlog in September, and that was driven all the way down to about 1.9 million in February. If there is an ongoing strike that's going to drag on for a while, we will see those numbers increase dramatically again.
Grain farmers are also worried. Not only do they rely on temporary foreign workers, but they also need their crop inspected before they can export it. Those inspectors are now on the picket lines.
It would eventually cause some cash constraints for our producers. And consequently, with some backlogs there, then you're going to have some backlogs in providing supplies for farmers to get their crop in for this year.
There can also be delays with your taxes, especially if you file via mail. There are no plans to extend this year's May 1st deadline, and if you have questions, you may be out of luck.
File with your best guess, in which case it may be wrong, you may be subject to penalties, or don't file, in which case you're subject to an immediate late filing penalty of 5%. Not a good situation any way you look at it.
Negotiations continue, but for now, uncertainty remains. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
So what does this strike mean for the government, and who has the most to lose? Rosie and the Ed Issue panel will get into that in about 20 minutes. BuzzFeed is shutting down its news division and cutting 15% of its overall workforce. In total, about 180 jobs are being cut, but the company says it will continue to deliver news through HuffPost, which it acquired in 2020. This is the second round of layoffs by BuzzFeed in just 4 months. The company has failed to turn a profit since going public in 2021. At least 3 people are dead and many more injured after a string of tornadoes ripped through rural Oklahoma. This time-lapse video shows the enormity of the storm as it was forming Wednesday evening. Today, crews combed through the devastation. Roofs ripped off buildings and transport trucks tossed across roads. Many homes completely destroyed.
Lost everything, 5 cars, house, barns, animals, and everything else we own.
The storm also produced damaging hail, in some cases the size of, look at it, golf balls. War, famine, disease. For almost a decade, Yemen has suffered all of it. Now a new disaster leading to at least 78 deaths. It has again laid bare the desperation of its people. Thomas Dagg explains.
In Yemen's capital, Sana'a, hospital patients bear telltale signs of an especially brutal disaster amid nearly a decade of suffering. In the dark of night, crowds rushed to a narrow street to receive cash handouts from local businesses, meant as a way to mark the end of the Islamic holy month of Ramadan. But when a gate opened, it sparked chaos. With dozens on top of one another, those who couldn't get out were crushed. The Prime Minister of Yemen's Houthi-controlled region, Abdulaziz bin Hattur, vowed there would be an investigation into the stampede, just the latest catastrophe in a country torn apart by war. Houthi rebels, supported by Iran, have clashed with the Saudi-backed former government in a brutal civil war that has killed more than 150,000. The UN has called it the world's worst humanitarian crisis.
There's tens of millions of people that are impacted. A lot of folks in terms of health infrastructure has been damaged. People's livelihoods need to be restored.
There have been some encouraging signs. A prisoner swap coming after longtime rivals Iran and Saudi Arabia announced plans to rebuild diplomatic ties. It inspired hope their proxy battle in Yemen would end. Even a UN-brokered ceasefire has held longer than expected.
We have not seen such a serious opportunity for making progress towards ending the conflict in 8 years.
In Sana'a, those hopes are dampened by despair. At the scene of the stampede, shoes left behind in the scramble to escape, marking the dozens dead. The cash each died trying to receive, worth an estimated $10 US. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Toronto.
Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly says an evacuation of Canadian citizens and diplomatic staff from Sudan right now is impossible.
The situation is very difficult and challenging as we speak. We call for a ceasefire and de-escalation. The airport is inaccessible, obviously closed. The streets are unsafe. What we're saying to Canadians, please shelter in place.
Fighting between rival military groups has brought the country to a standstill since Saturday. At least 330 people have now been killed. Global Affairs says it's aware of more than 1,500 Canadians in the country. Canada's embassy there is closed, but its staff are safe. Now to a CBC News exclusive looking into the plight of some of those still trapped in Afghanistan under the Taliban regime. Newly unsealed court documents reveal why former Canadian embassy employees are now suing the federal government. Rafi Bujkanian now on why they say Canada has failed them.
When Western Allied flights left Kabul in August 2021, Saik Shajan was able to escape. He credits his American friends.
I was lucky to get out on the 17th from Kabul to Qatar.
But for close to a decade, it was the Canadian embassy in Kabul that employed his law firm for legal matters ranging from traffic accidents to real estate deals. When the Taliban entered Afghanistan's capital nearly 2 years ago, he told his staff to take precautions.
I called everybody and I asked everyone to go home and make sure that they are with their families.
Most are still there. Special immigration measures were meant for people like them, people who had helped the Canadian government. But for 24 who applied to come to Canada, most have not received decisions on their cases. Neither has a former embassy security guard. Now they're suing Ottawa.
We hope that we will be among the first groups of people that will be evacuated.
This man worked for Shajan. He and the other plaintiffs aren't named in newly unsealed court documents. He's currently hiding in Afghanistan. CBC News has agreed to conceal his identity and his voice.
Taliban has visited our old office and the houses of some of our colleagues.
The lawsuit alleges the regime has detained and tortured one applicant, interrogated others, and held family members at gunpoint to reveal hiding locations.
Nothing was happening.
Their lawyer says immigration paperwork has languished despite her client's best efforts.
They had sent emails, web portal forms, they had called the hotline.
Ottawa would not comment, citing the court proceedings. So far, some 30,000 Afghans have come to Canada since the fall of Kabul. A third of them have arrived through the immigration measures at the center of this lawsuit. Rafi Bujikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
A new song made with AI using some familiar voices is raising some ethical and legal questions. It may sound like Drake, but he wasn't involved. Can artists do anything to stop it?
This was one of the first times where I truly felt that I was losing my grasp on reality.
Twitter sparks a political debate in Canada after slapping a label on the CBC.
His issues with the CBC has brought him to involve American tech giants to try and attack the local news.
Rosie and the At Issue panel weigh in with their thoughts. But first, Alec Baldwin won't face charges as he resumes filming on the set of Rust. We're back in 2. Lawyers for Alec Baldwin say criminal charges in connection with that fatal 2021 shooting on the set of Rust have been dropped. Baldwin was facing 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter, those charges stemming from the death of Helena Hutchins. She died after Baldwin fired what turned out to be a loaded prop gun in her direction. The film's director was also injured in that incident. K-pop star Moon Bin has died at 25 years old. The singer with the popular boy band Astro was found unresponsive in his Seoul apartment on Wednesday. The cause of death was not reported. The news affected fans all over the world. His is the latest death of a young K-pop star in recent years. Now, you may have heard it in recent days. 2 of the most popular musicians on the planet, both Canadian, coming together to create an instant viral sensation. Well, appearing to anyway. The only problem is it wasn't really them singing. As Eli Glasner explains, the AI hit is raising some creative and legal questions.
At first, it's quite convincing. Creator Ghostwriter 977 claims the song is AI generated. Artificial or not, it quickly generated real numbers, over 600,000 streams on Spotify, before Drake's label had it pulled.
There was just something about it.
But it was good enough to fool this music journalist.
Give me your thoughts when you first heard this, Jacques.
I think this was one of the first times where I truly felt that I was losing my grasp on reality because it really sounds very legit. We are vastly approaching to this uncanny valley where we're not going to be able to know what's a deep fake and what's real.
This isn't the first time it's happened to Drake. Recently, an AI cover of the song Munch prompted Drake to say on Instagram, "This is the final straw, AI." So excited, so excited. The power of AI has created everything from Rihanna singing Beyonce's Cuff It to this artist who had Drake rapping about beans.
I don't want no kidney beans, no black beans, no pinto. I want my chili full of labor.
It's definitely scary. You spend as much time as possible to perfect your craft, and to know that technology has reached a place where it can literally replace you.
Renee Smith is currently touring across Canada, and she's worried about control.
If your voice is on something you didn't write and you're not endorsing that message, then that can be a very scary thing in itself.
People say it's getting too far, and it complicates our work.
We played the song for these entertainment lawyers who say artists have some options.
The use of likeness and even the use of somebody's voice that's really indicative of who that particular personality is. Those are things that are protected.
And maybe even an upside.
There might be artists out there that want to license their voice to other creatives, and you can get collaborations that way that would never have been thought of.
As the emerging power of AI disrupts another industry. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
After the break, Rosie is here with That Issue.
Hi, David. Tonight we are going to talk about the public sector strike and how the government is responding.
It is a failure to have 150,000 workers go out on strike, and the biggest general strike in 4 decades.
The two sides are still talking. Can we expect a deal soon? And is the government handling the negotiations well? Chantal, Althea, and Paul Wells join me to talk about that and more. Hi there, I'm Rosemary Barton. Here's what's at issue this week. Public sector workers have begun strike action over wages and remote work. It is the biggest job action by government workers in decades. The opposition has expressed their disappointment with the strike. The NDP hopes a deal can be reached without back-to-work legislation. The two sides are still at the table talking.
We are still at the table. We're going to continue to talk. If there's a willingness on the employer side, we'll continue through this weekend. We'll stay there for as long as it takes to get to a deal, because that's our goal.
As you know, the strike has begun. We're still at the table negotiating, and hopefully we'll make some progress today. I'm convinced we can.
So what's to be made of the labor action, and how is the government managing it all? Let's bring in at issue Chantal Hébert, Althea Raj, and in for Mr. Coyne tonight, Paul Wells. Good to see you all. Appreciate you being here. Althea, I'll start with you. Do you think a strike was could have been avoided, or was this inevitable given how long negotiations had been going on?
Well, it seemed like the union actually wanted a strike, and that's what people internally will tell you. So I think that there was part of this was, I don't want to say unavoidable, because the government could have just given the union everything it wanted. Yeah. But I think there was a willingness and a readiness from the union to bring it to the picket line, and a willingness to stay there. And they have a big strike fund, and they could, be there for months if that's what they decide to do. What's interesting is that they haven't started making their case to the public yet. If you look back at the support that the labor movement got last fall when Doug Ford brought in the notwithstanding clause to bring workers back to work, one of the reasons why there was so much public support was because those were really the lowest paid workers. And the union has not communicated that, we're not talking about the executives in the government here. They haven't talked really to the public. So that's in a way a good sign, because it means that they are still negotiating. They haven't taken their case to the public yet. But if the government decides to dig in their heels, and they might, on this back to work stuff, on the remote work stuff, because I think that's a bigger sticking point than the actual salary increase. I think they will have to start making that argument. Otherwise, the public is going to get really frustrated and angry about the lack of services that they are getting.
Though, Paul, a lot of these people, from what I understand, make anywhere between $40,000 to $60,000 a year. And if you're dealing with an inflation crisis, interest rate hikes, you can understand how the union can make a pretty good case there that these people who Canadians depend on maybe need to be paid more.
Absolutely. I mean, their purchasing power has been diminishing thanks to inflation. They are probably not unaware that if the next election goes a different way, that a future government might be a lot less sympathetic than the Trudeau government, which, after all, has proven itself a pretty soft touch on questions of spending over the last 7 years. And so I think they figure they should take their chances. The problem is, even though it's true, these are frontline workers. These are not the big decision makers of the public service, and they do make quite modest salaries. People who make similarly modest salaries out in the rest of the economy can't count on very large salary increases year after year after year. They don't, if you work at a Costco or something, your boss is not able to provide the kinds of salaries and benefits that these folks are asking for.
Well, maybe they're able, but they're unwilling.
Yeah. I suppose we could ask Galen Weston. He's got some time to talk about that sort of thing now. So there is a challenge in gathering public sympathy for the sort of demands that these folks are making.
Yeah, Chantal?
It's usually been hard for public servants because of the benefits, not only those they are asking, but those that they do enjoy tend to make the public less sympathetic towards, and the fact that they tend to have job security. That being said, The government is in a difficult political place for a number of reasons. You can bet that premiers across the country are hoping that Justin Trudeau will hold the line on wage increases. Why? Because of the trickle-down effect of whatever happens in this negotiation to the negotiations that will be coming in most provinces over the next year, 2 years. So whatever the federal government gives will become a template for what happens in the provinces. But politically, the other problem the Liberals have is that the public pressure, when the public does lose patience, and it will be on them. The NDP is happy enough to stand with unions and to say, well, you know, Justin Trudeau always said he was your friend, but look at this test of that friendship and how it's turning out. Ditto for the Bloc Québécois. And I think the Conservatives believe, possibly rightly, that they can put this on Justin Trudeau, say, look, he can't even handle the civil service and keep public servants on the job. So when the Prime Minister hints at back to work legislation, you've got to wonder who in the world will be his dancing partner, because at this point no one is stepping up to say me, me, me.
Well, also because, Althea, we're now in a space where all parties court the Labour vote to varying degrees of success. Doug Ford certainly, his win is in large part because of that. So Chantal's right. There's so many people that want to keep people happy here. So many parties that want to keep people happy.
Yeah, I mean, it would be suicidal for the NDP to decide to support back-to-work legislation. They cannot do that at all. Ironically, I guess there could be an opening for the Bloc if they decided to give the government that, but you know, what would they be negotiating in return? The Conservatives, I think Chantal is right, will let the Liberals hang out to dry as long as possible. They're trying to make it sound like the government is incompetent and can't manage public financing, not that they would actually do anything different. And that's the challenge, right? I mean, if the Conservatives were in this position, I'm not sure that the union would feel so emboldened.
Paul?
Yeah, Pierre Poilievre was on Twitter and said that you've got to be super incompetent to have the largest expansion of the public service in decades and the biggest public service strike in decades. That's a great line, but Poilievre also famously said, we don't want a government that can run your life, we want a government that can run a passport office. This is this year's passport office. What he would actually do remains an interesting question. He's got a lot of public servants in his riding.
Yes.
Those public servants made things hot for him in 2015. But he runs a party that is a lot less sympathetic to public service demands, and he's been running it in a way that would suggest that if it were logical with itself, it would continue to be unsympathetic to those demands. If the question's put, and if the real question is not, do you support this law, but do you feel like this is worth going into an election on, I think that's a harder question for Pierre Poilievre than for some of his colleagues.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. I'm glad Paul mentioned Twitter, because we'll be back with another round of At Issue in a week that saw Pierre Poilievre attack the CBC with the help of Elon Musk and Twitter. What does it say about how the public broadcaster will be or is being used politically? That's next on The National. Welcome to another round of At Issue and a political debate about the CBC, courtesy of Twitter. After an appeal from Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, Twitter's CEO Elon Musk changed CBC's Twitter label to government-funded, which Twitter defines as an outlet that has government involvement in the editorial content. The CBC paused its use of the platform because of the suggestion it is not independent. Poilievre claimed victory, tweeting this and adding fodder to his calls to defund the CBC, something the Liberals jumped on for their own political reasons.
Issues with the CBC has brought him to involve American tech giants to try and attack the local news, the local culture, the francophone news that Canadians rely on from coast to coast to coast.
So what do these week's events tell us about the way the CBC is being used politically now and how it will be in the future, and is it effective? Let's bring back everybody, Chantal, Althea, and Paul. Chantal, why don't you start us off here? Do you think that this is a winning strategy for Pierre Poilievre, that there is a conversation that people are eager to have around this, and that, you know, using the Elon Musk ploy, which has been used with many other public broadcasters in the world in the past couple of weeks, is a smart idea?
Well, if it were a conversation, it would certainly be worth having. But the way it has been led by the Conservatives and their leader is not the way of a conversation. You can't start a conversation by saying the CBC is a propaganda tool. It's just too easy, and then not be able to answer, well, how exactly would you go about defunding the CBC and not Radio-Canada? And how would you explain to Canadians that you would be funding a service for one language group in this country and not the other? There are plenty of questions to be asked. That being said, usually when a leader takes a stance and pursues it as aggressively, his MPs are eager to echo it, and some of them were. But in Quebec this week, the entire Quebec caucus literally turned into ghosts. They would not go on any radio show, on any TV show to kind of expound on where their leader was going. And the reason for that is that they know that in their own communities, it's not a great battle horse to say if I'm Radio-Canada is a problem for me. And so it's rare that you see MPs run away from their own leader's position. I'm not saying a gaffe, a deliberate strategy that has his own MPs hiding under their beds rather than account for it.
What's interesting too, Althea, is not just what Pierre Poilievre is doing, which he's been very open about publicly, but is also the way the Liberals and the Prime Minister position themselves around this as the great defender of it all.
Yeah, it was interesting to see the CBC has suddenly become this wedge issue where the Liberals are now fundraising off of the CBC. And I guess, should we all just declare that we have a conflict, or is it just so obvious that we don't need to declare that we have a conflict in talking about the CBC and its funding? First of all, on the Twitter stuff, Pierre Poilievre has decided to pay for his blue check mark. So I guess you could argue, or certainly ask the question, whether his paying of Elon Musk is cash for access and Elon Musk is doing him a favor to help him in his campaign. At the same time that Chantal mentioned that Pierre Poilievre is talking about CBC as Trudeau's propaganda, which is what he called it this week, he is using CBC's reporting to attack the government in question period. The story about the Jamaican vacation, that is a story from Radio-Canada. Like, I'm a big fan of the CBC. I grew up listening to Morningside and watching Peter Mansbridge with my dad on TV and Cross Country Checkup, and I think it's one of these institutions that knits the country together, and we get to learn about each other from coast to coast, and I would be really sad to see it leave. But I do think that so much of this is a self-inflicted wounds that CBC is engaging in themselves. Like, I don't know, and this is not to you, Rosie, but to the people running the CBC, like, don't get involved in this mess. And constantly, they are not doing themselves any favors. Like, most people will look at Twitter and say government funded. Like, of course you're government funded. You receive $1.2 billion annually from the government. They may not read the Twitter fine print. So I wish that there was a little bit of maturity from the part of the CBC in detangling itself from the political gamesmanship on this issue and letting it play out without them being an actor in it, so that we can try to safeguard the CBC. Sorry, end of rant.
Paul.
One hardly knows where to begin. Look, on the substance of the thing, the CBC is not the Vatican. It should be perfectly normal for people to ask questions about its utility. 100 years after it made perfect sense to establish a Canadian presence in the then new technologies of radio and television, it's now just as obvious that there is just a hell of a lot of competition for viewers and readers and listeners' time and attention, and that the CBC, like any one of us, is struggling to hold on to its footing. It's also very obvious to an awful lot of people who watch the CBC that certain political viewpoints are presented more frequently than other political viewpoints, and that bugs the kind of people who Pierre Poilievre needs to vote for him. And I think the last thing is, it was a very strange thing that after everything that Elon Musk has been doing for the last year, saying an obvious and notorious truth on the CBC's account, that it receives money from the government, was the thing that made the CBC decide to get off Twitter. I didn't even need Elon Musk to get off Twitter. It's easy to get off Twitter. More people should do it.
Yeah.
Now, having defended Poilievre to that extent, I will say there's a question of priorities. There's a shooting war in Europe going on right now. He hasn't had a thing to say about that for a year. Picking this as his next fight confuses even those people who might be amenable to voting Conservative, because it's about 80th on most of their priority lists.
Yeah. And when you talk to Conservatives, what they say is that this continues to be a red meat issue for them, that it's something that they want to talk about, as do Liberals for that very same reason, Chantal.
Yes, but it does become a competence issue. If you're going to make this really important, then it's a public policy issue. You need to think it out. I'll give you one example. Pierre Poilievre says he would preserve Radio-Canada. Set aside the difficulties in keeping one and not the other, because it gives French language information to communities outside Quebec that have no other French language outlet. Fine. So, except they only manage to exist because of the CBC infrastructure.
That's right.
For one. Second, and more to the substantial point, Radio-Canada is the only outlet, the only media in Quebec that actually brings in stories from outside Quebec. So if you want Quebec to be even more insular, well, get rid of those antennas across the country, and it's going to be fine. I mean, you can fill newscasts with Quebec News. It's not very hard. But if from just a nation-preserving perspective, you need to think about these things and be able to answer those questions if you're going to seriously say, as a future Prime Minister, I believe the CBC is now a propaganda tool that I would not want as Prime Minister, so I would wind it down.
Quickly, Althea, and then Paul. Althea.
He will wind it down and use the CBC buildings for social housing, apparently. I don't know that he needs to say publicly what he would do. I mean, these are questions that we're interested in, but the people that he's speaking to are not interested in the details. This is the biggest, cheer getter during his leadership contest. Whenever he went to a rally and he talked about defunding the CBC, it got really, really loud cheers. It's very popular with a certain group of people who probably, frankly, don't actually watch the CBC. I think the CBC's biggest defense, frankly, is to just do its job properly, prove your worth, and then people will see value in it.
Paul, last word.
On this question of a conflict of interest, it's not only the CBC. Thanks to a bunch of essentially ineffectual bailouts to large newspaper companies, which I fought every step of the way every time anyone asked me, every reporter in every scrum in the next federal election will be in an obvious conflict of interest. There's a government that wants to extend those subsidies, and there's a government that claims to want to shut down the English CBC. There's a party that wants to shut down the English CBC and end those newspaper subsidies. It doesn't matter what the reporters think or whether it affects their work. The fact that someone could reasonably ask that question shatters the credibility of most of the journalists who are going to cover the next election. There's nothing those reporters can do about it. It's a big problem.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you all. Good conversation on that one. Appreciate it. And with that, I'll send things back to David Common, and he's in Toronto.
Thanks, Rosie. Next, a small community recognizes a local hero.
I don't know. It's family. It's family. They look after him as a family member.
A Special Olympian's second home, now named in his honor in our moment. You're looking at a rare kind of solar eclipse that took place last night. It's known as a hybrid eclipse, when you see the outline of a solar ring and a total eclipse completely blocking the sun. This blackout lasted 58 seconds. Thousands gathered in Western Australia, one of the few places in the world to view the cosmic event. Next time you can catch this kind of eclipse is 2031. Well, there's no overshadowing this star. Mike Austin is a bona fide legend in Lewisport, Newfoundland. He's a Special Olympics champion and a community hero. He's known for attending every event at the local arena, inspiring other athletes and spreading joy. That arena now bears his name. The grand gesture is our moment.
The Mike Austin Arena.
About 3 weeks ago, we found out that they had set a motion in council to rename the Lewisport Stadium the Mike Austin Arena. There's no words to explain the emotions that ran through us at that time. Mike is a Special Olympian, He's got over 200 medals. Every time the stadium doors are open, Mike is there. He's always there. He's a fixture. I don't know. It's family. It's family. They look after him as a family member.
We were so proud. We were up there with him when they unveiled the sign. There was not a dry eye in the stadium.
To see him honored in such a way, I tell you, it was so great. You know.
Sure was. What a great grand gesture in a great little town. Congratulations, Mike. That's amazing. And congratulations, parents who kept it a secret for 3 weeks. That can't have been easy. Also, a sign at the refreshment stand there says, Mike eats free. So your friend is Mike. Thanks very much. That is The National for April 20th. Have a great night.